The studio lights blazed, cameras rolled, and millions tuned in. It was supposed to be just another hard-hitting interview. Except tonight, the host had a plan. A trap. J.D. Vance, the newly inaugurated vice president, sat across from Marcus Bennett, a journalist notorious for cornering his guests. But if Bennett thought he was in control, he was about to realize just how wrong he was. "Mr. Vice President," Bennett began with a slick smile, fingers gripping his cue cards. "Let's talk about your transformation. You once criticized President Trump. Now you're his second in command. Isn't that, well, convenient?" Vance leaned back, a slight smile forming. "That's a great question, Marcus, because it speaks to something bigger than politics. It speaks to growth. You ever change your mind when faced with new evidence?" Bennett blinked. He hadn't expected that. "We're here to talk about your changes, not mine." "Of course," Vance said, his voice calm. "I once saw things through a narrow lens, but I saw the policies, the real impact on working Americans. I could either cling to my pride or accept the truth. I chose the truth." The audience murmured. This wasn't the defensive response Bennett had expected. He shifted, moving to his next planned ambush. "You recently spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast about faith-guiding leaders. Isn't that a dangerous mix of church and state?" Vance's eyes locked onto Bennett's. "What's dangerous is forgetting that our rights come from God, not the government. Every president, Republican or Democrat, has invoked faith. Are you saying they were wrong?" Bennett's jaw tightened. "Surely, in a diverse society—" "Faith isn't about division," Vance interrupted smoothly. "It's about strength. When I was a Marine, nobody questioned our chaplain's presence before a mission. Funny how faith only becomes controversial when it's inconvenient to certain narratives." A few audience members clapped. Bennett wasn't used to losing control this quickly. Time for another angle. "You once wrote about struggling financially. Now, you're in a tailored suit defending a billionaire. Have you forgotten where you came from?" Vance chuckled, shaking his head. "You think a suit changes who I am? My grandmother raised me to judge a man by his character, not his wardrobe. My values didn't change, Marcus, but your assumptions about me did." The audience murmured again. Bennett, growing desperate, went for the knockout. "Some would say you're nothing more than Trump's puppet." The word hung in the air. The trap was set. Vance didn't flinch. "You know, Marcus, that says more about you than it does about me. In your world, loyalty is weakness. In mine, it's strength. I've seen the president's character firsthand, not the version you create on TV." The studio erupted in applause. Bennett's fingers twitched, shuffling through his notes. This was not going as planned. "Let's move on," Vance smirked. "Running out of time already? Funny how that happens when the conversation doesn't go your way." The audience laughed. Bennett swallowed hard. He had one last move. "Isn't it ironic that someone with your education still clings to traditional values?" Vance leaned forward. "You mean the values that built this country? Family, faith, and freedom? You mock them, but millions of Americans live by them. The real question is, why does that bother you so much?" Silence. For the first time in his career, Bennett was speechless. The audience wasn't. They stood, clapping, cheering, drowning out whatever weak response Bennett tried to muster. Vance stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "You invited me here to shame me for my beliefs, but here's the thing, Marcus. Truth doesn't bend to your narrative, and neither do I." As he walked off set, the applause followed. Bennett sat frozen, his ambush in ruins, exposed not by attack, but by the quiet, unwavering power of conviction. And that right there is the difference between manufactured narratives and real leadership. If you believe in standing strong for your values, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because in a world full of spin, the truth deserves to be heard.